What drives a person to commit a crime, and what happens to the soul afterward? Fyodor Dostoevsky's Crime and Punishment, first published in 1866, is one of the greatest psychological novels ever written. It is a story not just about crime, but about morality, guilt, redemption, and the struggle between rational calculation and human conscience. At the center of the novel is Rodion Raskolnikov, a young, impoverished former student living in St. Petersburg. Desperate, isolated, and filled with intellectual pride, Raskolnikov commits a shocking act. He murders a pawnbroker whom he considers worthless to society, justifying it with the idea that extraordinary people can step beyond morality for the greater good. But instead of freedom, the crime traps him in paranoia, guilt, and torment, leading to a profound exploration of the human soul. The first lesson of Crime and Punishment is the danger of rationalizing immorality. Raskolnikov convinces himself that his crime is justified, even beneficial, removing a cruel pawnbroker who exploits the poor. He frames it as a moral calculation, believing that great men throughout history have broken rules for progress. But Dostoevsky shows how intellectual rationalizations collapse when confronted with human conscience. Raskolnikov cannot escape the weight of guilt, revealing that morality is not an abstract theory, but a deep reality within the human heart. The second lesson is the psychological burden of guilt. After the murder, Raskolnikov spirals into paranoia, illness, and mental torment. He oscillates between pride in his supposed superiority and crushing fear of being caught. Dostoevsky captures how guilt is not just external punishment from the law, but internal punishment from the conscience. The novel reveals that crime brings suffering, not because of detection, but because of the unavoidable weight of conscience. The third lesson is the conflict between pride and humility. Raskolnikov is tormented by his pride, his belief that he is above ordinary morality, and his simultaneous longing for redemption. His pride keeps him isolated, resisting confession, while his conscience gnaws at him. Dostoevsky shows how pride can imprison us, and only humility opens the path to healing. The fourth lesson is the role of suffering as purification. Through suffering, Raskolnikov slowly begins to change. Dostoevsky suggests that suffering is not meaningless, but transformative, a path to humility, compassion, and redemption. This reflects the author's Christian worldview. Suffering is often the road through which the soul awakens to truth. The fifth lesson is the power of compassion. The character of Sonia, a poor young woman forced into prostitution to support her family, embodies unconditional love and faith. Despite her own suffering, she shows Raskolnikov compassion and spiritual guidance. Sonia becomes the novel's moral center, demonstrating that love and faith can heal even the darkest soul. Her influence is crucial in Raskolnikov's eventual confession and search for redemption. The sixth lesson is the critique of utilitarian morality. Raskolnikov's intellectual theory resembles utilitarianism, the idea that morality is about maximizing benefit, even if it requires sacrifice. But Dostoevsky dismantles this cold calculation by showing that human life cannot be reduced to numbers. Every person has dignity, and no rational argument can erase the sacredness of life. The seventh lesson is the importance of confession. For most of the novel, Raskolnikov resists admitting his crime. He seeks escape through denial, pride, and intellectual justification. But only when he confesses, first to Sonia and later to the authorities, does he begin to find relief. Confession is not just legal, but spiritual, an acknowledgement of truth that allows healing. The eighth lesson is that redemption is possible even for the guilty. Dostoevsky does not leave Raskolnikov in despair. In the epilogue, Raskolnikov begins a journey of repentance and spiritual renewal, guided by Sonia's love and faith. The novel insists that no matter how deep the crime, redemption remains possible through humility, confession, and love. The 9th lesson is the critique of alienation. Raskolnikov's crime grows out of his isolation, his detachment from family, community, and faith. Dostoevsky warns of the dangers of intellectual pride that isolates us from others. Human beings are not meant to live in isolation, but in relationship, compassion, and shared humanity. The 10th lesson is the exploration of morality as rooted in the soul, not social rules. For Dostoevsky, morality is not imposed externally, but is intrinsic to human existence. Raskolnikov cannot escape guilt because morality is part of what it means to be human. His suffering reveals that the soul itself demands truth, love, and redemption. So how do we apply crime and punishment today? First, beware of justifying harmful actions with rational arguments. Intellectual brilliance cannot erase moral responsibility. Second, recognize the power of conscience. Guilt is not weakness, but a signal pointing us toward truth. Third, embrace humility. Pride isolates, but humility opens the way to healing. Fourth, see suffering not just as pain, but as potential transformation. Difficulties can lead to growth if faced honestly. Fifth, practice compassion. Sonia's love shows that empathy has the power to heal. Sixth, value confession and truth. Hiding mistakes deepens torment, but honesty frees the soul. Seventh, believe in redemption. No matter the past, change is possible. Modern relevance is striking. In an age of moral relativism, Dostoevsky reminds us that morality cannot be reduced to convenience or calculation. In a time when many struggle with alienation, depression, and guilt, the novel shows that healing comes through connection, compassion, and honesty. And in a culture that often avoids suffering at all costs, Dostoevsky presents suffering as a teacher painful but essential for growth. Perhaps the most powerful part of Crime and Punishment is its depth of psychological realism. Dostoevsky does not present crime as abstract, but as lived torment. He enters the mind of guilt, paranoia, and redemption with a vividness that feels timeless. Readers recognize in Raskolnikov the same struggles we face: pride versus humility, despair versus hope, isolation versus love. The big takeaway from Crime and Punishment is this: crime cannot be escaped by intellect or pride, because the true punishment is internal, the conscience itself. Redemption is possible, but only through humility, confession, and love. Dostoevsky's message is that even in the darkest guilt, light is possible if we open ourselves to compassion and truth. That was Crime and Punishment by Fyodor Dostoevsky, broken down into its most powerful lessons in under 10 minutes. Which lesson resonates most with you? The burden of guilt, the power of confession, or the hope of redemption? Share your thoughts in the comments below. And if you enjoyed this summary, make sure to like this video, subscribe to 10-Minute Books, and ring the bell so you never miss our weekly breakdowns of life-changing books. Thanks for watching, and remember, even in guilt, redemption is possible.